Frequency Radio is your #1 source. Sad information without the hate, hype, and we're proud to feature cutting-edge programs like The Christopher Everard Show, The Covert Report with Susan Lindauer, Enemy Within Reach with Tom Barnes, Freaking with
Hello, and welcome to Comrades and Farms here on Truth Frequency Radio, also streamed through iHeart, Tuned In, TalkStream Live, and also on the Farmacy Seeds Network YouTube channel, FARMACY, as in Let Food Be Thy Medicine. Tonight we're going to have a really special guest on. My good friend Brad from the YouTube channel Grow the Farm Up. Brad is a regenerative agricultural farmer out in Nebraska, and we're going to talk a little bit about food quality and a whole bunch of awesome other stuff. So let me go ahead and bring him in, and we'll go from there. Brad, can you hear me? Oh, let me try unmuting you. How about now?
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Ah, I can hear you now. This is not a commercial for a cell phone. How you doing, Brad?
All right. Well, thanks for having me on. It's nice to finally meet you.
For sure. Glad to have you on. Glad to have made your acquaintance through YouTube. And I know you and I have been chatting back and forth about regenerative ag stuff. The only thing different between us really is our scale, I think. But you're doing it on a massive scale out there. Could you tell us a little bit more about that so our viewers have a little more context on what you're doing?
If your viewers would give me just a couple minutes, I'd like to kind of go over a brief short history of food companies we need from about 1980 to 2020. This won't take me but 2 minutes. I would call in to hijack your show, good buddy. But this is very, the answers to the questions that we're seeking lie in this kind of unfolding of history. So if you guys can hang with me for a minute, I'll kind of lay it out. I had a front row seat to it and can really shed some light on some topics. So are you ready to rock and roll?
I am ready to rock and roll. I'd love to hear that and anything else you want to share. There's no hijacking my show. I'm very happy to hear everything you have to say, really. Please, you have the floor. Go ahead.
All right. So essentially we started, as we had for thousands of years, naturally breeding. And we naturally bred and we got better at it. And some companies were a little better than others, and some started with a little better germplasm. But it was all just essentially the same seeds. None of them were owned, and people just did their best to breed them. And then came along GMOs. And this is in the late 80s, early 90s. Now let's have an honest discussion as to why GMOs came along. They came along because they flippin' worked. Yes, they worked. They were like a comet being dropped on Earth, a totally foreign to nature formulation that we have never seen before. It kills everything green on planet Earth, right? I mean, literally, everything green that it's not resistant to on planet Earth, it will kill it. Wow. Nobody's ever formulated anything like that before in history. I mean, just the historic nature of that. And that was actually invented by a company called Roman Polansk out of France in like 1983. Now, there's no shortage of law firms that will argue who invented Roundup. I think now they're all running for the doors, right?
Mm-hmm.
But, like 2,4-D, and if you take it, maybe you're familiar too, there's like 17 letters there. 2,4-D-7,2-T-T. If you add a T in a different spot, it's actually what made up Agent Orange. But the point is that chemicals like 2,4-D have been around since the late 1800s in chemical form, in liquid form that would be sprayed to open roadways, and things like this for wagons and carriages. So spraying herbicides is not something that is, I guess you'd say, completely, never been done in history. So I only bring that up because Roundup was just, this is why Roundup, when you hear Roundup, think, a lot of different chemicals, but Roundup is the most widely used one. So the idea then is, all right, we got a home run here, guys. Let's just make the row crops resistant and problem solved, right? Right? Shouldn't be any problems. And it kind of did for a few years. But wrong. Mother Nature adapts. It always does. Every freaking time. Every time we put out a trait that tried to make a plant resistant to insects, guess what? We created super insects. Roundup created super weeds that are shutting down entire townships south of the Mason-Dixon line. You go down into Georgia and Tennessee, they have thousands of acres and towns that are decimated because of these super weeds. They're called Palmer amaranth. They cannot be controlled. So here we are, 20 years later, and my family company was NC Plus. We resisted the buyout until 2004. This is when the seed monopolies were formed. Really, the Monsanto monopoly was formed, and they decided they would buy their way to the market share. And so we got bought out in 2004. I essentially went to work for them for about a decade. I know exactly what they do, how they're doing it, why they're doing it, and I have just barely escaped with my neck, and I'm doing the exact opposite thing that they're doing. And there's a reason for that. And that ought to speak volumes, what I just said. Let that sink in for a minute.
Yeah.
About 2009, I looked around and I realized that we're headed for a tipping point. And at that point, I thought it'd be, give or take, 2025, to where we would really begin to see heavily real effects on humanity from the way that we were farming. Farming changed in 1996. I mean, I was 20 years old. I was 18 years old. I mean, it changed. And for a while, even I bought into the GMO bandwagon because they were just so effective. You shocked the earth with something that it had never seen before. And one of the selling points for Roundup, check this out, you'll like this. One of the selling points was anything that you spray out there that the plant doesn't take up, guess what? It's the most water soluble organophosphate.
Yeah.
It's so water soluble, it'll just soak straight through your water or straight through your soil and go down into the aquifer, and it's out of your soil in like 42 hours if it rains, and it's unreal. But I look around now and I wonder if I missed my guess by a decade. I mean, is it now?
Yeah.
It's not quite. I mean, there's a moment left here. But seriously, I mean, we are at a nutritional human health moment in world history. I'm not trying to sound an alarmist viewpoint here. I'm just simply pointing out there's some problems.
No, that's a fact.
And, two guys talking on YouTube can set the world on fire, dude. And thank God that we have this platform to solve these problems that we face. That's one of the things that I think that's really unique about this era, that the knowledge that we can share with each other, because we got this is real. I mean, I spent the last 10 years of my life setting up to get here. I've been arm wrestling with these large companies for 20 plus years, and I'm still here. But I've pontificated on long enough. Let's talk about wet bulbs, man, because it's so helpful. And it'll make water and humidity just completely automatable. So I'll let you soak that in, and then we got to talk about wet bulbs too, man. That's some next level stuff I learned drying corn.
Dude, that is just awesome. What an awesome way to come into that. And I find it really funny that so many of the people that I see that are sort of icons in the regenerative agricultural industry, and you're certainly one of them, I think, one of the few last standing breeders who didn't get bought out. But man, it seems like all those guys went through that era of the chemicals and the GMOs and, trying to work with, the conventional agricultural systems, because that's what was taught to them in ag school. That's what the industry standard was. That's just what everybody was doing, and they were having success at first with it, right?
My university ag education is the most worthless $40,000 I ever spent in my life. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No. Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm just trying to set you up here for home runs, and you're knocking them out. So keep knocking them.
Well, no, you don't have to pick me underhand. We got a lot of hard stuff ahead. But no, I always joke that they have a university, and it essentially is a chemistry-based system. And they're just teaching these kids chemistry.
Yep.
That's one of the biggest problems we have in the seed business. Everybody that knows what they're doing is 67 years old. Yep. And can't retire because there's nobody else that knows what to do. I mean, I'm working with all of them. They're like, well, can you just do it? Well, no, but who else is gonna? All right, fine. I guess it's the mark of a good plant, but there's so few of them left, which is one of the things that really drew me to your channel, man, is I really like the way you explain things. There's never a must or a have to at the end of all your observations. And that's something I'm always looking for. I mean, that's the mark of a good builder, and that's really what a plant breeder is. I mean, you got to be able to ebb and flow, with almost, I don't know, not to get too weirdo on you, but like the vibes of the earth, man. I mean, you just kind of have it or you don't. I can't really explain. I can't take a college kid who's been taught chemistry for 4 years, put him in a field and make him a good plant breeder. There's just so few left in the world that are doing the right thing. So, you got your thing going there, and you're actually right in the marketplace. But, like, you want a job or a partnership or something, man? Because your understanding of these are just that what we're using are just tools, and the way you understand the end goal. I haven't met too many people like you in the world that are willing to engage with an open mind, and I've actually seen you do some stuff on your channel here that's blowing my mind, because I do a lot of the same stuff just on a larger scale. But your raspberry thing, man, that's righteous. Yeah, this port doesn't connect to that port, and this sensor and that sensor. People don't realize how difficult so a lot of this stuff is. I mean, it's really the technicality level of it. Now, take that, what you're doing with your raspberry, and apply it to plant breeding times 10,000.
Yeah.
I mean, there are spreadsheets that are built out. There's something like 64,000 sister lines.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to go back into one of the original 12,000 to get good actual corn that is not so, I don't know, genetically modified. And are you familiar with CRISPR at all?
A little bit. I'm familiar with kind of what it does, but maybe just so people understand, so people are on the same page with us, maybe you could just, kind of glaze over it. But yeah, that's the gene editing technology, basically.
Yeah, and it's CRISPR. People are calling it CRISPR for its acronym. It's all caps. And it is exactly that. It's a gene editing technology, and there's people that are selling embryos that fill in. What you do is you go in and you just you and I could do this in your garage. Okay, you go in and you just blank out a set of basically genomes, and then you plug in somebody. You can go buy them off the street, basically, or you can try to make your own. When I say buy them off the street, that you can buy them from companies. And then you plug it in, and you see what happens, and they come up with the best nuclei that give you the best outcome. They're trying to do things like make tomatoes taste better,
Yep.
Their thought process is, what if the foods that were good for you tasted like cherry pie? Well, then all the kids would eat them. That's an oversimplification, but, is that genetic engineering, folks? I'd be curious in the comments. A lot of people are using CRISPR. I mean, remember the Chinese scientists that got in trouble for making a human being with only CRISPR? You guys, are you guys all aware of this?
Yeah.
I mean, so this is some wicked stuff, and what CRISPR is it is the delineation of GMO technology to all of us. It has essentially made Monsanto and their lab obsolete, and so that's why we're at this. That's why you've seen the bigs at war with each other. They're fighting over a disappearing and shrinking marketplace, because a guy like me can take CRISPR and actually probably do just as good, if not better, than their top-heavy, ossified, over-the-top. I mean, how many branding different companies, how many billboards do you have to put up? I mean, have a product or don't, Well, I've droned on long enough, man. You lay some back on me now.
I mean, that's the thing, though, right? Like, I mean, you can go through all this trouble to advertise something, or you can just make something so good that it sells itself. And that's like one of the beautiful things about regenerative agriculture is it fixes all the problems at the same time. The human health problem, the soil and ecology problem, the seed quality problem, the productivity problem. Like, if you really understand what regenerative agriculture is and how it works, it is a self-building, self-arranging system that over time makes it better and better and better. It's the opposite of what the conventional system is, where you have constant degeneration and now you got to come up with another chemical and that's stronger and that kills more stuff. It's a whole different paradigm shift, really, right? Like, it's a whole different mentality about it.
Yeah, I don't know if you got a chance to read that article I linked in, I don't know, one of the videos. I'll just give you my email or something.
Yeah, we should exchange emails for sure.
But there was an article, and you guys will have to look. It's under one of his or one of my videos that came out in the last couple of days, and it's an article about these brothers from Kansas that switched over to regenerative farming, and the older brother's like, nope, I don't give two, I could care less about a green, got nothing to do with it. You know what, I make more money this way. And it was just, even guys that aren't trying to find the financial advantage, or even guys that aren't trying to, I guess, approach this from a climatology perspective first, are switching to this way of farming and going, dang, I make more money. And so it's inevitable. It's just a matter of time. And I don't know, I might be wrong, but I think this is damn near a one-off solution. And you tell me how far off I am here, but I think we could probably sequester enough carbon in the soil if we turn most of cropland into regenerative cover cropping, rotational grazing.
Absolutely.
And I think that then you'd see, I think you'd also then see a price of food that is well represented, to the point that the producer has the incentive to produce it and the buyer has the incentive to buy it. And, you know, we've talked a lot about how, you know, localization is coming. It just has to. I wonder if the virus came along to teach us, or if, you know, I don't know, but I don't know about you. I'm finding there's more opportunity in the world today because 40 million Americans just walked away. Didn't even close the door, shut off the light. And people are calling me, and I'm like, what? You want me to do? Really? You want me to do? Really? You think I can actually do it? Well, okay, you'll pay me what? All right, I guess I'll do that. And then I go about buying the equipment and trying to do that. And so far, I haven't fallen on my face. So it's been one hell of a fun ride for 7, 8, 10 years. I'd rather do this than work for those big, man. I mean, what those guys are doing is just, I got to be careful.
Yeah.
And I got a lot of independent partners in this, and they got to know it's the kind of partner that they work with. I just, you know, I keep my promises to my partners. So I got to be kind of careful. I got a lot of people's proprietary information in my brain, but, you know, I'll go far enough. I'll say this: the major companies are literally breeding the nutrients out of the seed supply. That's happening. I mean, that was one of my biggest, almost moral dilemmas why I work for them. And I made a video about it once where I think I even started yelling. I was like, you know, I didn't know what to do. I thought I had to keep the family farm running, and, you know, they really put pressure on you, and your bankers and everybody. I mean, no, like, you can't even get a loan unless you agree to put on certain chemicals and GMO seeds and get in. All these companies have programs. They lock you up for 3 years, and it turns and then they make you sign all these hush agreements. You can't say a word to any. And it's just one morning I woke up and I just went, no, you did. I don't know how much French you use on your show, so I'm not going to introduce it unless somebody else does. But, you know, it's like, dang it, I can do something about it. And so that's, we basically started swinging back, and it's an interesting paradigm. I know exactly what they're doing and why they're doing it. I know exactly what's going on, and it seems to me that the markets that we're hitting, I mean, they're just, I can't fill orders fast enough. It seems like an inevitability to me. Am I missing it? What do you think?
No, I think if you can't fill orders fast enough, that indicates a market growing faster than you can supply it. That's the ideal situation to be in from any kind of a marketing standpoint. Have a supply that is unlimited, or a demand that's unlimited, and a supply you can't keep up with. That means you have exponential room for growth.
That's why I say, like, you want a partnership or a job or something? Just let me know.
I would seriously consider that, because honestly, I'm literally working on the not even a shoestring budget. It's like, the little plastic tip that goes on the shoestring. It's like that.
Yeah.
But
Same here. You know what's funny? You just add more zeros, and it's the exact same problem.
yeah, I
When I
know.
was
I know.
18 years old, $200 was a lot of money to me. And now that I work with various different entities in the millions, I always joke with my son, money is the same exact problem your entire life. It's just a matter of how many zeros you want to deal with.
Yeah, how
Some
many
days
zeros
really
do you want to
envy,
manage?
like you're set up. I'm sitting there going, this guy's got it figured out.
Now, that was part of my driving factor with everything that I've done here. Was I had a limited income. I went through a bunch of stuff in my personal life that caused my income to be taxed pretty heavily, and I kind of just was like, instead of going out and trying to make $1 million to like satisfy this never-ending equation, how about go the other way? How about do it as cheap as I can and see what I can live on my own? And man, I've really shaved it down small. There's advantages and disadvantages to that. At the end of the day, it's nice to have a little bit of money when you want to do something, and money is the only obstacle in the way. But I think long-term money is going to come anyway. But it's so awesome and inspiring to hear that you went through all that, and that you kind of reacted the same way I did. You got that guttural reaction of like, this is wrong. I don't want to support this anymore, and I feel like I'm being crushed by it, and I have to do something about it. And then react with it, and now look at what's happening now, right? Like, your business is growing. There's a demand that you can't keep up with. That's just awesome. That's like truly the American story, isn't it?
Well, it's just like your story, and you know what? It takes balls. I mean, it takes a lot of courage to go against the grain. What you're talking about are two guys that looked at all the fish swim in this direction, and what we did is the hard thing, turn and swam the exact opposite direction. And you know what? It seems to be working out pretty good for me. I don't know about you, but I'm going to keep going the opposite direction of the herd.
Yep. It's it's been a long struggle for sure, but it's definitely starting to turn out in a great way for me. And like all that energy that I put into it early on that didn't feel like it was going anywhere is starting to feed back and show me that, hey, you're on the right path. Keep doing what you're doing. And so that's really exciting.
Oh, I can relate, man. That's farming so much.
Yeah.
It's like out of 10-year average, I lose my ass 4 years. I don't know how I'm gonna make it, and then I just bank for 2 years, and then I break even the other two. And I can completely relate with that. But we got to talk about wet bulb, man, because I think it'll solve a lot of the green. I think I'm gonna go put some greenhouses up. Looking at what watching your videos, tell me if I'm wrong. I was thinking HVAC, but now I'm thinking water because of humidity. Because I mean, we get like 12% ambient humidity in Nebraska in February. I need the humidity.
You need the humidity. Yeah.
Go ahead. Are you familiar with wet bulb with wet bulb at all? It's a really simple concept, but it's a really complex equation. But this is what you do. You take two of the old mercury thermometers, right? And you soak one in a cool wet rag, and you cover it with the rag. Leave the other one uncovered, and then the temperature difference in between them. And then there's a whole scale. Look it up online. It's like wet bulb grid, and it shows you and it tells you. But what it does is it's telling you the air's capacity to take on water.
Yep.
And that's almost more important than true humidity, because
that makes sense.
I've never found a humidity sensor that's worth a damn. I mean, I've spent $600 on a humidity sensor once for my seed corn dryer. Nothing. I mean, in fact, it would throw more air than it would give me.
Accurate data.
But having a wet bulb temperature, and it's once you get it dialed in, especially in a greenhouse environment. What you would have is, I mean, I found my wet bulb that, like 73 to 68. That's a big difference. 68's dry air,
Yep.
and you better get some humidity in there.
Hey.
73.
Hey, Brad,
And if
can you
it's
hold that?
wet air.
Can you hold that thought a sec? We got the commercial break here. We'll be back in like 3 minutes or so.
Oh, you bet, man.
All right.
So why would I want to buy one of these, Mr. Radio Shack Manager?
I want to buy one because now everybody's a can of garbage.
Hello, hello. Welcome back to Comrades and Farms here on Truth Frequency Radio, iHeart, iTunes, and TalkStream Live, as well as on the Farmacy Seeds Network YouTube channel. Tonight's guest is our friend Brad from Grow the Farm Up YouTube channel. I'm sure Geeky will share the link in the chat here on YouTube, and I'll try and share that link over in the TFR chat as well. Before we went to the break, Brad and I were talking about humidity controls and humidity sensors as I apply it to a greenhouse, and as Brad applies it to his seed dryer. Brad, maybe you could pick up where you left off with that. That's an excellent concept. I remember doing that in high school, and I haven't looked at it again since, but that makes a lot of sense as a great way to do that. I think you could automate that probably with using just 2 thermal sensors and then just using the difference in the database.
Much easier. That's actually all it is. And in fact, you don't even need a thermocoupler. I just tie my 2 wires together on my milliamp system, and it kicks out within a half a degree temp every time. Once you get the baseboards right, definitely. But yeah, if you think about it this way, it's telling you the air's capacity to take on water. So at 80 degrees, the air does not have that much capacity to take on water. It can only take on 20% water, just to oversimplify this thing. At 20 degrees, the air can take on 80% water. It doesn't exactly work out that way, but you can kind of roll with my simplification of the chart.
Yeah.
And once you get that down into the right range, that's the easiest way. That's how I struggled with humidity sensors for years and years and years, and I found wet bulb. I would look it up, and I can tell you exactly which one I use if you want to in a different conversation. I saw a couple comments. A couple of people chimed in and said, "I want to learn. I'm here to learn more about plants." Give me 1 minute on modern plant breeding and why I started that way, because we did kind of get off track there, and I want a couple of people commented about it. What they're doing, ladies and gentlemen, is they're essentially breeding the nutrient density out of seed so that a farmer can grow the same amount of pounds, the same amount of pounds, because that's the number one problem with our food supply. We as farmers don't care how many nutrients are in our crop. We are simply paid by the pound. 60 pounds for a bushel of soybeans, 56 pounds for a bushel of corn. It all gets commingled and mixed, and none of us care. That's why these identity preserved markets, like what my operation is building, are booming the way that they are. So what they're doing is they're breeding the nutrients out of the seed so that the farmer can grow what he perceives as higher yield by putting on less, horrible fertilizers and anhydrous ammonia and these different commercial grade fertilizers. So he can put on less and spend less money, and the reason that they're doing that is because it's the only way to even slightly kind of try to hold up this sort of almost offshoot of plant breeding. It's beginning to eat itself, you see. We're to the point now that the breeders have no choice, but here's just a quick example. When we put the Roundup trait in soybeans, they went from an average of about 40% protein to 33. Just as why? Nobody to this day can explain.
Bang,
it.
7% right off the top.
To 40. Yep, and to this day nobody can explain it. You pull the Roundup gene out, and we're pushing 45, 47.5. I probably shouldn't go much deeper than that, but I mean that's a lot of protein in a soybean, man. I mean, you need to grow 70% of the soybeans. And the thing is that it's not getting delivered to you. What's happening is we're filling up that, that extra poundage with water and empty carbohydrates, and it's not arriving to you in a consumable form in a protein that's, highly soluble and easily digestible. It's showing up to you in the form of a carbohydrate, essentially a water-based carbohydrate. And I think you're seeing, and it's been that way for 20 years, and I think you're starting to see the health effects, almost the health effects of a large scale. I mean, look at the country. I mean, is it that we can test more, or is it that we're all just sick as hell? Autoimmune diseases, 12% of people will have food allergies. I mean, we're looking at a near, people should not be able to get as fat as they get. I'm not trying to be mean when I say that, but literally it should be physically impossible in the world that we occupy for someone to weigh 412 pounds. Now, you know, I who can't stand to lose 20 pounds? I'm not picking on anybody here, but it shouldn't be possible. And there's so many non-soluble fats, and part of it is modern day plant breeding.
Yep.
And so for the people that were commenting, say, hey, I came here to learn about plants, why did this guy give me a tour of the seed industry? And you see what we're doing now.
Well, it goes back to that.
We're breeding the nutrient density. But yeah, we're breeding the nutrients back into the seed. And I mean, not only just the protein and fiber, but I mean, you know, we're talking all of the micronutrients, the essential micronutrients. I mean, the copper, manganese, zinc, boron, everything that you need back into the germplasm of the seed. And really, everybody that's got their hands on it are. You know, I've got 3 bins. I was just cooling the other night when I made that horrible video through that scratched up lens. And what those bins are 100% non-GMO tested food grade, and they're going to go into somebody's potato chips somewhere, and you're going to get some really good potato chips. So I wish I could tell you which label and where, but I'd get in so much trouble.
Sworn to secrecy, right?
You know, it's like I'm trying to exist inside the matrix while trying to destroy it at the same time. It's a been a balancing act, man. I've got my partner, my independent partners that I got to keep my word to, because it's a really real thing. I mean, you guys have seen how the Monsanto company plays ball. You know, this hasn't been Queensberry rules for the last 20 years. I'm not whining by any stretch. I picked the fight, you know, and I think they got a little more than they were hoping for. Also, it's the farm boy that wouldn't go away, but that's what you get for buying my family legacy out from under me when I was 24 years old. I wasn't going to just sit back and let it happen, you know. Screw these guys. They're just some dudes in suits and companies. The hell makes them any different than you or me? Nothing.
Nope.
Absolutely nothing. And then they just lost their license. They're basically their ability to hang a license over our heads. We can now gene edit in our own garages. And so, I mean, it's there. I mean, it's there for the taking. The next 3 or 4, 10 smart people. That's why I mentioned go to bensonhill.com. If you haven't checked out Benson Hill, I partnered with that company 5 years ago right away when I saw what they were doing. Check out bensonhill.com for sure. Their website explains it so much better than I ever could.
Yeah, they really go into it in a way that is clear, and people who aren't into the science of plants and soil and all, because let's face it, that can be really complex. Who aren't into that can understand how it relates directly to their health. That's so critical. You know, you mentioned the trace mineral being higher in the nutrient-dense crops. Just so people can relate to that, those trace minerals are the basis for enzymes. Each enzyme is basically a trace mineral covered in a protein shell, and those enzymes plug into biological processes. And if you remember enzymes from high school, those enzymes can keep doing that process over and over and over without being worn out, and that gives us the capacity to accelerate all sorts of biological processes through enzymatic action that would otherwise be really slow. And just for a real simple explanation of that, the saliva in your mouth has an enzyme called amylase, and without that you wouldn't break starches down to simple sugars, and it would take you forever to digest pasta, bread, anything with a starch in it would take forever to digest without that enzyme present. So that's just kind of an example so people can relate to how that ties in and why that's important.
I believe the good Dr. Zach Bush would call that a microbiome.
Yep.
That guy, I like Zach Bush. He's all right. He seems a little bit like a salesman to me. I'm giving him 70 to 80% of the pitch. What's your opinion on Zach? I mean, he knows this stuff better than I do. So, like I say, I'm giving him 70 to 80%. There's about 20, 30% of the stuff he's stealing. Just as a farmer myself, I'm going, No, he's trying to tell me Liberty Link is a new chemical.
Yeah.
It's been around since Roundup. I mean, there's some things he's missing, but he really is on to something on one side. What do you think about Zach Bush?
I think on the nutritional and human health side of things, he's really on point. I think when it comes to the agricultural and farming side of things, he probably just doesn't have the same perspective that you or I would have on it. I mean, I've studied this stuff pretty intensely since 2013 when I discovered, regenerative agriculture and these concepts. And, even now, as much as I know, I feel like I have, a lifetime long journey still to continue to understand all these pieces and put them together, in a more, concise or better understood way, I guess. I'm kind of grasping at words here, but I like the fact that he's introducing people to understanding those concepts and what some of the hazards and dangers are. Definitely the glyphosate thing, that has some tremendous capacity to lock up trace mineral nutrition. And as soon as you start doing that, boy, you really disrupt all sorts of endocrine systems. It's funny, we talk about that product, that's considered to be one of the safest herbicides in use on the market today. And so then the question that leads on is, if that's the safest, what are some of these other ones doing? Because we know what this stuff does.
That's why I mentioned earlier whenever you hear somebody like Dr. Zach Bush say Roundup, really just replace that with all ag chemicals. We used to use malathion. There are chemicals that you were able to use in the 70s and 80s that I would get 5 years in the federal prison if I even had them in my warehouse
Yep.
today. Just to give you an idea of how far we've come. A lot of farmers joke, they basically give us watered down dish soap anymore. The products don't work. Now, that's chemical's a chemical. Let's not downplay that. I understand people's issues with chemicals. A chemical is a chemical, man. It's
not existing naturally in nature.
It's not. Right. I wouldn't plug my face into a concentrated 2-gallon jug of Roundup. You're right.
No
right.
way.
But when you spray 6 ounces of it over an acre, I'm not in defense of Roundup by any stretch. What the hell do I have to defend Roundup for? But actually, funny you mention that. It is the safest compound to humans, yes, but just basically coming in contact with it. But it is not. I think it's proven really unsafe. You nailed it on the right nail on the head. The endocrine systems.
Yes.
And it's such a water-soluble organophosphate. That's what made it so effective until we essentially became resistant to it. But what's funny is that it's kind of a non-event. About 80% of farmers have quit using Roundup. It's not effective anymore. It really is not effective, and a lot of people have moved on to different and other chemicals that are just as gnarly, heinous, and bad. I always compare it to energy drinks.
Yeah.
How long have energy drinks been on the market? 20 years, 10 years, 15 years.
Yep.
We're not going to learn what the long-term effects of those are until 2035, when we all turn 55 and go to the hospital with God knows what.
Well, and that's not even that's not even taking into account the epigenetic effects that go on and get passed on to your kids and your grandkids. Some of these chemicals don't show up as really bad to the system until they show up in the second and third generation. A lot of these studies that they're doing to get this stuff passed, or they're doing like a 90-day study on it. They're not looking at what happens in the 4th, 5th, 6th generation with rats. When you do those long-term studies, they're a lot worse.
It's the fox watching the hen house, man.
Yeah.
Sorry, but there's like 3 peer-reviewed studies that I would even mildly trust, that I think were actually done by an independent source.
Yeah.
One of them I cited in that video I sent to you, that reply video, and there's like 2 others. Otherwise, you can't find them. Everybody in the audience, go out and hunt for them and link them and send them to me if you can find them. I even know all the places to look, man. I mean, I license seed for and sell and retail and grow for a living. and I can't find them. So somebody find them and forward them to me, please. I'd like to have them.
Yeah.
I'm gonna need them. they don't exist, guys. That's the whole point, man.
Yeah. It's there's so many complex pieces of this puzzle that go outside of actually growing food or growing seeds, right? There's a lot of economic and political dynamics that are affecting a lot of this, and but it's amazing to see how much this like I said, I kind of stumbled onto regenerative ag in 2013, and I've watched just from then to now in 7 years, I've watched this explode into consciousness. Really, people are really becoming aware of it, and I'm running into more and more people that are like, wow, it makes a huge difference in health and in what you're consuming. And in 2013 I tried to have that conversation with people, and they didn't even, oh yeah, I eat healthy. It's like, well, no, but where's that food coming from? Oh, it's just from the store, it's fine, it's approved by the FDA. It's like, no, I'm trying to tell you something deeper than that.
Right. Just because the label says organic, does that mean it was actually grown healthier? Might have been grown organically, but was that actually the healthiest way? There's a lot of same way with non-GMOs, GMOs. That's like I always say, that's such a deep rabbit hole.
Here's
you could go down there for I got to the point where I call myself technologically agnostic. I at this point, it's decide for yourself. I mean, there's the evidence is out there. I mean, the empirical evidence is out there, and then my experience of 25 plus years of dealing with it, and that decide for yourself. I made a video about it. I'm not going to argue about it on waste your show's time. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think just having the perspective from someone who's an actual seed breeder. I had the point I was going to make about that, but I lost track of it in my head. But yeah, I mean, there's just so much to say. I'm going to sit back and let you talk. Maybe you could.
It's really. I mean, that's what it all comes back to. Like you talked about, I've seen the same thing, and really since about 09, 10, 11, and you say you came along in 12, 13, and one of the first things I thought of is, we're gonna need seed. And guess what? I am a fourth generation seedsman with a 100-year-old seed company that actually am just big enough to. We always joke, like Cloud City and Star Wars. We're just big enough to float and function, but just small enough to fly under the radar of the Empire. Cloud City. Come on, Landau Calrissian, man. I don't know what cooler metaphor you could have for your own operation. Star Wars and everything.
Yeah.
But so we went to work and looking at it from that perspective. That what are we going to do when farmers actually transition? And little known fact, you don't have to start with an organic seed right now. I mean, so we're growing. And but there's talk they're gonna change the rules in the next 2 to 3 to 4 years, that you have to actually start with an organic seed.
And how much harder is that going to be to source, right?
Organic.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, right, like the seed itself is going to have to be grown organically. Right now you can just grow a non-GMO seed and then grow it organically and sell it as a true USDA organic cert. But if those rules change, and there's talk that they're going to have to start with an organic seed, then that's a real game changer, because organic seed, one, is much more expensive, much more difficult to grow, and it's going to yield a little bit less.
Yep.
But you're creating a more premium product. If that's what the consumer wants, that's what we give them. I mean, that's kind of been our model.
Yep. And it's funny you mentioned that about the seed. It's the other funny thing is, like, the organic certification only requires that you haven't been spraying a piece of land for the last 3 years. So it's like, So you could have toxified the crap out of it for the last 50 years with every kind of pesticide, herbicide, fungicide you can imagine. And then 3 years, boom, magically, now it's organic soil. Like, well, the reality isn't that way. Those endocrine disruptors are long lasting. They have very long half-lives. Glyphosate, for example, is a 22-year half-life. You know, you put an ounce on, in 22 years, there's still a half ounce there. In 22 years, there's still a quarter ounce there. This is a long cycle. And so, you know, doing that certification thing like that, rather than doing actual testing of quality, which is what we should be doing for all of our food supply, not just our seed breeding, there's a huge difference there in what the actual, what it looks like on paper, right?
Yeah, and that's really, I go into this a lot, and we have two food labels, independent third-party food labels that consumers can trust. I mean, I hope that's not an oxymoron. I mean, we've been working on it for years, and we're basically, what we have is a fully traceable audit trail of all of our processes, and we're actually working on putting it onto an app. I mean, there's a lot going on in the making. By 2022, 2023, you can look back and go, wow, it's going to happen through Benson Hill, and it's going to happen here at Lauber Seed Farm. And I mean, there's a lot, you know, the bionutrient meter is coming out.
Yeah.
I mean, we're going to look at we're looking at some serious, you know, there's a reason I'm you know, sitting here chilling out watching your greenhouse videos and decided to give you a call tonight. We're on the verge of like 3 or 4 major breakthroughs, and you've got about 7 to 8% of America's cropland breaking off into this identity-preserved, nutrient-dense system, and you're just going to continue to see it grow and grow and grow. And yeah, guess what? They all need seed. And actually, my facility is this is the thing about the feed industry. The increases are just massive. My facility can grow enough to plant about 7 to 8% of the entire acres of the United States.
Wow.
I mean, that's just, you know, I don't like to work that hard.
Crap.
You know, I'll just plant 1 or 2%, but if I want to maximize it out, you know, and so that's one of the reasons that Benson Hill and Lauber Seed Farms became such, you know, fast and good partners. It's like, hey, we need a seed company. We got everything else in place, and we got the science in place. We need a seed company. Like, well, guess what? I got a seed company, and so it worked out nicely.
Wow, that is just astounding. That's astounding, dude. That's amazing.
Yeah, I think really, I think you might be talking to, like I say, I think we're talking about the next evolution. There's a reason I started putting these stupid YouTube videos up, and I know they're just cheesy and corny as hell. No. And you know what? I'm making a hard line. I'm never going to edit one, ever. I don't care. I'm not spending the time to edit one. I don't have time. If anybody wants to edit my videos, just let me know. I'll send them to you, and you guys can edit them if you're getting sick and tired of looking at unedited Brad.
I don't mind the unedited at all. I like the authenticity of that and the realistic, you know, like that takes you right to, like, you're talking to a real person. You're listening to somebody who has real experience, and they're sharing that real experience in unedited, uncut. You know, on my channel, I do a lot of editing and stuff to try and get my production quality up. But, you know, at the end of the day, that's all fluff, right? Like, at the end of the day, the message is the message. And, you know, you can put all sorts of shiny little things on it, but what really counts, you know? What's at the core? And it's really like, it's ethics, basically.
Yeah, and I suppose if I actually did some, like, channel squaring up and promoted it and actually, I don't know, looked into a couple of YouTube menus, you know, and there's like 19 different social media outlets. I don't want to be on 19.
Yeah, it's a lot to keep up with.
I generally look at it this way, like, if you want to know something in the world, what do? You Google it.
Yep.
If you want to see something in the world today, what do? You YouTube it. Yep. Whether you love them or you hate them is irrelevant. They're the brand name. So I said, you know what? I'm just doing it on YouTube. That's it. If you care about nutrient density and you want to follow along with the future of the food supply, here we are.
You'll come here.
Maybe you don't
Yeah.
care. That's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah,
but,
yeah.
You know, I'm not going to spend an hour every night editing my video. Not that they don't need it, but I figured, you know, if you can go to a channel, very few channels succeed, I've found, where people just go there for their personality.
Nope,
You
nope,
know,
that's
I
a
mean,
fact.
very, very few channels.
Content's
I
king.
mean, most of them go. Yeah, exactly. If you know you can tune into a channel and actually get the real, hey, this is what's coming down the pike, you know, guys, there is hope. I mean, yeah, it looks pretty bad right now with the world lockdown and I mean everything else.
We're coming to the.
Can't even, you know.
We're coming to the break. I'll catch you on the other side of the break. Sorry to interrupt you.
Gotcha, man. Gotcha.
All right, cool.
Hi, my name is Ella, and I'm
Welcome back from the break. You're listening to Comrades and Farms on Truth Frequency Radio, also streamed live on iHeart, TuneIn, TalkStream Live, and the Farmacy Seeds Network YouTube channel here on YouTube. Farmacy spelled F-A-R-M-A-C-Y, as in let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. Tonight's guest is a very special guest, my friend Brad from Grow the Farm Up. He's an organic seed breeder out in Nebraska, large scale, and we're talking about all sorts of stuff agriculturally related. I forgot exactly what we were talking about before the break there, Brad, but I'd love to pick up where we left off.
You know what? We've covered A to Z and basically kind of unleashed the nutrient revolution. So when you say pick up where we left off, I don't even know where to begin, man.
Yeah, I guess it really doesn't matter. I mean, we're covering quite a few pieces of the topic. Could you talk a little bit more about some of the more subtle things of seed breeding, obviously without violating your agreements or anything? But maybe you could fill people in a little bit more about how you go about doing that on some more of a user level scale, so people could kind of understand the concept of how it works.
Well, here's kind of let's roll this from a different angle. One of the big issues that came along with GMOs was the legal precedents that came along with them. We gave essentially Wall Street firms the right to own the genome of a living plant.
Yeah.
That had never been done in history. Till 1964, Harry Stein was the first SOB to do it. And now he has a Learjet, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's still around. I know Harry pretty well. I doubt he'll probably catch me on this channel. I don't know that he does too much podcasting. But when we originally that's what came along with GMOs. I mean, before farmers could save their own seed. Now saving corn seed, there's a lot of small seeded plants. I mean, there's you would know more about tomato seed. You grow certain varieties for seeds, certain varieties for food. Maybe you want the seeds out of the food varieties because they're the best ones. You would have more information about that than I would, and I think that's really the great merging that, I guess, from my side, I've got the 94 million acres, of which we're getting 3 to 4 to 5 million acres switched over into this nutrient-dense, seed. And the thing is, who owns and what are the royalties for these seeds? And Benson Hill and we got together and we're selling them for like 50% of what a soybean costs through any other company, because we're basically just trying to start a market. Google came out and actually is one of the venture capitalists of Benson Hill Seeds. That ought to give you an idea. I mean, Google just basically came out and opened the market. They went, okay, you guys got it figured out, and you got a grower, and you got, so, Google's going to have bots dropping off regenerative. Oh, they want the farm family with the eggs and the chickens and the hens and the barn and everything on these boxes. Like, you can't believe, man. And they've actually got a farm family willing to do it and already doing it. And just to give you an idea of how quickly, the pace of this is picked up like you can't believe. I think you're going to see and my objective is to get the food ingredients that are going into all the crap that are on your grocery store shelves right now that you're walking back and forth. I'm going to get the food ingredients, the more nutrient-dense food ingredients into that stuff. And then what guys like you are going to do are going to grow 365 plant to plate to where I can come to you in January and get a ripe tomato. Yep. And get, ripe lettuce. That's the future of the food supply. And it's not going to happen overnight. We've only been screwing this thing up as bad as we possibly could for really about 60 years now. We're not going to fix it overnight, but what we're seeing, the rate of, as soon as you switch regenerative, you go, okay, 3 or 4 years, I might see a payoff. Year 1, you go, whoa. I'm sure you saw the same thing. Year 2, you go, holy cow.
Boom.
Year 3, you go, why did I ever do anything different?
Yeah.
You know,
Why was
you're
I kicking
wondering why you
myself in the
spent all that
shin?
money on fertilizer.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. And so it's important to understand that plant breeding is really where all plant-based nutrition starts. And plant breeding is the fact that there's so few good ones that are trained to do the right thing left in the world. That's probably the thing. I mean, I don't know. I had a guy once at a conference walk up to me after I gave a speech. You know, one of these guys. He said, "What keeps you up at night?" You know, that was the question he asked me. I'm like, "Well, what kind of answer do you give to that?" And so I turned right to him and I said, "Incompetence." I mean, the fact that I'm looking at a room full of 60 graduates that I just gave, you know, basically a plant breeding speech to. None of them paid attention to me, and they just got taught 4 years of chemistry breeding and exactly the wrong thing. And I don't even know why you invited me here.
Yep.
You know, I mean,
Yep.
that's what bothers me the most. And that's one of the things that has really got our business just booming, is that they know, okay, this guy knows how to breed plants. And there's like, seriously, I'm probably, in my circle, there's a dozen guys I know out of the 500 plant breeders in my network, just in my region. There's a dozen guys I know, 3 or 4 really good ones, ones that I cut my teeth under and kind of taught me. They were mavericks too, man. They were badasses. I mean, they were the ones that taught me. Who the hell? Who do these guys think they are? I mean, like what? Just because they've got, you know, Corteva or Pioneer or Monsanto or DeKalb or Channel or any of these major ag monopoly names on their shirt, like, you know, what do they think they are? What they got nothing on you. I mean, in fact, you're doing it better. And so they were the guys that taught me. But I mean, that's scary. And so that's one of those things that I think people really, it takes it to the next level. And I think that's what Benson Hill breaks down really well, is that it's a place for basically kind of the centralization of that knowledge that is about ready to retire and or, dare I say, pass away. I mean, there's some guys that are 78 years old that are still doing it that I call regularly for advice. Well, this 2.8 soybean, you know, 901 isn't mixing really good with the 903. I shaved it, I cut it, I replanted it. It just, I don't, well, you know, what you're doing wrong here is you probably got to move the F2 to the F9. Yeah, just little things like that. That, you know, these older guys that know what natural breeding is. There aren't, well, there's like 3 to 5% of plant breeders today that know what natural plant breeding is. They've been taught essentially chemistry plant breeding. And that's concerning.
That natural breeding thing really comes down to like good selection and good recognition of traits, no matter what, you know, scale you're on, right? Like when I look at a crimson beefsteak tomato, I want to see the biggest one, right? I want to see the biggest one, and it's got to have the best flavor. It can't be watery, and then I want that plant to produce as many fruit as it can and fill those fruit completely without any sort of disease or pest pressure showing up, right? Because that says that plant is maintaining its nutritional integrity throughout its growth cycle, right?
And, you know, that's I'm glad that you phrased it that way, because that's what we're doing. We're changing the paradigm to where now we're breeding for not just dead weight. And the same is true in fruits and vegetables too, by the way, guys. It's just by the pound. You know, when you stick them in your sack at the grocery, you buy them by the pound. You're not buying them by the nutrient value. But yes, we're starting to basically breed towards that trend, and we're figuring out what and that's the real question, and that's something else. And I want to ask your audience: is CRISPR? Are you guys going to accept CRISPR? Can I put that in my toolbox? And, you know, I don't know, come near save humanity? Or are we just playing with fire again, and CRISPR is going to bite us in the rear just like Roundup did? Are we just regurgitating the cycle? That goes around in my head a lot. And are we? The first thing farming, kind of like being a dog. First, do no harm.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, don't screw it up any worse than it already is.
That is
right?
the standard, isn't it?
Before you go out there and attempt to touch the bandwidth of the world and attempt to change the world, make sure you got your own house in order first, man.
Yep.
I mean, that's no small thing.
Yep. Make sure that you're not going to cause a bigger problem down the road, because otherwise you're not fixing it, you're making it worse, right? I mean, like, this is really kind of a simple concept in theory. It's amazing the cognitive dissonance we see with that, where people just like they go around that and like go out and like try and change all kinds of stuff not knowing what they're doing. Like, it's frustrating to watch.
Are you going to give me the bad Jurassic Park Jeff Goldblum quote now? Can I get that in now?
Go.
Back
go
when blockbusters were blockbusters, we were about the same age. Back in like 1993, when going to the movie theater was still a fun, cool thing to do.
Yep.
What's that line in Jurassic Park? Jeff Goldblum. Your scientists were so obsessed with figuring out if they could, they never stopped to ask if they should.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's the last Jeff Goldblum quote I'll bring tonight.
No,
but,
no, that's brilliant, dude. That's so true.
So relevant.
Yeah. And I see that in a lot of places, and I have to say, my gut reaction when I found out about the CRISPR thing was, oh no, facepalm. What are we doing now? Let's go back and study and mimic nature and look at how well nature reclaims things, amplifies things, carries things, and maintains balance and stability. You start messing with one part of any system, you're going to upset the balance of the system, and that's when the system's going to crash, right?
Theoretically, yeah, and I mean, I am on the fence on CRISPR because it is different. But what I find myself doing a lot is trying to talk myself into using CRISPR and justifying it, and I'm going,
yeah, it doesn't feel right though, does it?
I played with it. I mean, I don't know, it doesn't. I don't put it out. I'm talking a little, 20-foot
testing,
20-foot areas
testing
of absolute research,
Yeah.
and actually the research just gets weighed and burned because God knows what I've invented.
We've created, yeah. I
But,
know
there's some remarkable stuff going on there, though, and it's coming, guys, and you're going to see it be somewhat regulated. Right now, it's completely unregulated.
Yeah.
And there's arguments that they don't want to have the FDA regulate it because they think that all that you do when you take it to the FDA is you give it to 5 or 6 cartels that control it.
Well, I was going to say that's where it goes back to that revolving door between, like, for example, Monsanto and the FDA. Like, how many CEOs have sat on Monsanto and then sat on the FDA and then back and forth? Like, wait a minute, don't we have like a conflict of interest here from a legal standpoint? Isn't this a basic, serious conflict of interest? The regulating agency in charge of certifying something.
And that's really one of the biggest values that we've brought to the marketplace. One of the biggest reasons we're booming is that we basically own the seed. We individually and independently own the germplasm to our seed.
Yeah.
Nobody else in the world has that, and so they don't own it. They can't own it. And so now, I'm at an inflection point where, okay, I've got this really great thing, and I've got about 9 different options, and people pulling me 7 different ways. And, I've had some really lucrative opportunities to do the wrong thing with this, and could have walked away to a beach, but gosh dang it, I think about my kids' future and the quality of drinking water, and I mean, I don't know, life going on longer than 200 or 300 years after I die, that would probably be a good goal to shoot for. I don't know, you got to be wired a little bit different, man, to live this way. I don't know. I
Totally.
think there's like 3% of us in the world. I call us the unemployable. I mean, I couldn't work for somebody else.
Yeah.
I don't care how much money you paid me. I could never work for somebody else.
I gotta say,
I
man.
don't know how folks do it.
I've had so many people tell me like, oh man, you should go work for this company. You should go work for that company. And I just like, I don't think you understand like how much that rubs me the wrong way. Like not that you're suggesting that. I appreciate that you suggest it because, you know, it means you think that I have some value to bring to that company. But I see what they're doing. I see they're manipulating people. I see how that, you know, I can't bring my ethics to the table without basically, you know, ending up on the chopping block. And I don't want to play that game.
Well, and they misunderstand how sacred it is to be one of the lucky few
Yeah.
that can actually be free and exist outside the system. Man, it's mainly just jealousy when somebody's telling you to go get a job at this company or that company. Hey, come be miserable with me. You know, that's the worst the thing. I
Misery
live my
loves
life
company.
by the right. I live my life by the plant clock. You know, and I know you do too. I'm seeing y'all posting videos at like 3 in the morning because you're out probably chasing coyotes out of your sweet corn. You know.
Yeah. Well, that and then
actually,
that and then I'm
to be
keeping
honest,
the greenhouse going over the winter. You know.
Right. I've found actually planting small seeded crops at night, they germinate better because there's more moisture in the soil.
Yep.
I mean, that's just one of those, you know, the guys across the road are like, what are you over there doing planting at 4 in the morning? I'm like, hey, well, just wait. I got my reasons, you know, and then, I'll sleep all day. I don't give a shit.
Yep.
I mean, that's the best way to do it. Living life on whatever clock, you know, get your work done and provide value. That's what I found through this COVID virus. If you can actually produce a product, provide value, and then make it a premium product on top of that, and actually be able to deliver, do what you say what you do, all that.
Mean what you say. Yep.
Under promise, over deliver.
Yep.
I mean, wow. I don't know what's going on. If our generation's falling behind, or if it's this COVID thing. I don't know what's going on. But where I'm from, I'm telling you, there's more. I have to turn down more phone calls than I take. In fact, I've got to a funny point where people ask me on my phone, because I bet it rings 80 times a day.
Yep.
I say, well, I'm getting to the point where if they pay me, I'll answer.
Yeah.
If I pay them, no, it's going to voicemail. And if they call me twice, okay, I'll go ahead and pick it up. It must be an emergency.
Yeah. Twice in 5 minutes is the rule, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah. If you call me twice and inside of 3 minutes, I'll probably hit you back. That's kind of where it's got to. But no, this has been cool, man. This is a chance to actually, you know, everybody says it takes a couple years on YouTube, and
it does.
You know, I'm not obviously obsessed with setting up the best YouTube channel ever, but just getting the info out there. And really, honestly, folks, you ought to have some hope from this conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, not just hope, but not only is there a better, brighter, more healthy future out there, but there's people striving to do it.
It's actually happening.
Fighting against the people that are doing the other exact wrong thing, and so we have been, and we're about to clash big time. And you know who's going to win this? The consumers. I mean, the consumers have got to. You know, I hate this statement. You hear farmers say it all the time. We got to educate the consumer. No. The consumer has to educate the farmer.
Yep.
And that's that doing a 180 turn. You know, you swim against the herd. And you know, the consumer doesn't know everything from A to Z what it takes to produce that product. Let's not make them learn that.
Most of them don't have a clue what's involved.
That are important to them.
Yeah.
Right. So let them tell us the 3 or 4 most important things that they want, and who the heck can argue with nutrient density?
Right. Well,
I still to this day haven't found one person that can come up with it. No, we want less nutrient density.
Right.
nobody has been
No,
able
I want to be
articulate
sick
it
and have
solidly.
heart disease and cancer and gain unnecessary weight and feel crappy all day. No, I haven't heard anybody say that. Not one person.
Yeah, give me some more Dinty Moore beef stew. Right, right.
Yeah, yeah. It's amazing. And like at the end of the day, like what's the thing you always hear from all the retail people, right? The customer is always right. Well, I don't think we can disregard that when it comes to food supply, can we? Like, what does the customer want?
Not if you ask Monsanto or Corteva or Dow or DuPont. No. You're going to get what they shove down your throat. That's the way their business model works.
And
It's a great
doesn't
business
that
model.
activate the
mean,
independent spirit though? Lots of people have resisted to that. Like, wait a minute, what are they doing? Oh no.
Yeah.
I see people who
It-
who aren't doing like you and I are doing. Like, let's go build the new future. I see people who are like, they want to go tear down Monsanto, and I'm like, Monsanto is irrelevant. Let's build the better system. Just they don't even exist. Next.
Yeah.
Why are you wasting your energy?
Right. Yeah. Now they're Bayer, and they're bigger and badder than
Yeah, they
ever.
merged with like 5
I
or
mean,
6
that-
companies or
that's-
something,
I
didn't they?
mean, Yeah. Oh, it's basically Bayer and Corteva. Those are the two names that you need to know. Syngenta a little bit. They're Chem China, but Bayer, Corteva, and Syngenta. Those are the three monsters.
Yep.
It's funny that it wound up with 3 on top. you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
That ship that sailed over with the 3-headed monster.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know.
it's funny.
Now
It's funny.
Now
Yeah.
we're going Illuminati deep. That's
Well,
too deep.
okay, but like Nikola Tesla said, the secret of the universe was 369. And it's like, the more I research into all this stuff, it's like there's so much there that's it's hard to like put a real tangible like value to it. But I notice these numbers over and over and over, and at a point you just can't ignore it.
Right. Right. Well, you're absolutely right. At what point does coincidence become something you start acting on without feeling like you've gone crazy? Something to that effect, right?
Yeah, I see. Actually, I worked with a missing persons investigator years back, and she had a whole array of, I think it was like 7 or 8 things. It was like, first is one time is a coincidence, second time is a something, third time. I'll have to dig that up and share it, because boy, it was really awesome. Like how after a point you just can't ignore that things are lining up like they are over and over and over. This is no longer a coincidence. We have to I pay attention to this now.
I think I know the meme you're talking about. The third one ends up, and the third one, now I'm a conspiracy theorist too, or something like that.
Yeah.
I think I know the meme you're talking about. Yeah. I mean, it's and honestly, dealing with these guys on a boardroom level, I've come to, there's not any evil
intent
what I
behind
would
it.
say, like Wizard of Oz pulling strings, but there's a lot of backslapping and a lot of backhanded deals and a lot of things that shouldn't be going on. Absolutely. I haven't found any. They're not competent enough to put together a widespread corruption scheme. They really aren't. This is just, they literally have got this way of agriculture ingrained into the United States and into everybody that grows, corn, soy, and freaking wheat. That's pretty much all we grow, and a little cotton in the South. I mean, they've got 80 million acres and 4 crops. I mean, it's easier, cheaper for them to deal with, and what they've got coming, and the big thing they missed, what they have coming, is the consumer. They completely forgot about the consumer. So the farmers now that cater to the consumer are just, the consumer's starving for operations like ours.
Yes.
I mean, literally, we can't fill orders fast enough, and they're going to do everything they can to try and stop. They already have. I mean, I'm in court right now with like 9 injunctions. I mean, I don't even want to get into it.
Oh my God! Wow, that's we're playing ball on an elevated level here, but you know what?
it's fun, man. It's about I don't know, living a meaningful life, right? You know, and if you can take chaos and derive a little bit of order out of it, you know, it adds a little meaning to your life, makes you want to get up and do what you want to do. I mean, you should be going out and doing what you want to do every day. If you're
Yes.
not, take a look at your life and change it, man. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
it
And we're
really is
coming
not
into
that
the
hard
break
to
here,
change.
Brad.
I've
But
seen.
sorry
Yeah,
to interrupt
man.
you.
Don't
But
let me.
we'll pick it up on the other side.
No, don't let me. Yep, you got it.
Awesome. Sorry. Also on iHeart, tuned in, and TalkStream Live, as well as the Pharmacy Seeds Network YouTube channel. Our guest tonight is Brad from Grow the Farm Up, and we're talking about nutrition and health and regenerative agriculture and all sorts of awesome stuff. Before the break, we were talking about some of these different company pressures here on the agricultural system, and Brad was elaborating a little bit more on that. So, Brad, welcome back to the last half hour of the show here. It's really an honor to have you on, and I'm really enjoying this conversation, and it looks like everyone else is as well.
Good. I don't have my phone to check the comments. How's everybody doing in the comment thread? Are they hanging with us, or
They're
are
hanging
they off on cloud nine, just not even paying attention to
No,
us babbling on?
They're very much hanging with us, and they're very much appreciating your insight and our conversation. So
I tell you what, grab some questions. Folks, ask some questions and throw some questions. Got the last half hour here. So far, he hasn't thrown me off the show, and that's doing pretty good. So you know what? Throw a couple questions towards us. I got some greenhouse stuff I want to jump into, but if you guys take a couple minutes, think them up, fire them into to the chat room, and you decide which ones you want to take, man.
all right, very good. Well, I don't have any questions off the top of that bit here, but if I see questions come through, I'll pipe them through to you. If you want to go into some greenhouse stuff, I'm more than game to jump into that as well.
Well, and I think that's probably a good spot to look at, because that's the place I'm looking at next. You're sitting in like really a perfect spot for commercializing, and you saw the chicken tractor that we built. I mean, we don't screw around.
That
do
is
something.
awesome. This chicken tractor I've ever seen.
Isn't that thing ridiculous? That was built out of like an old tank we had laying around the farmyard. You gotta love that stuff about the family farm. You still just grab the tank, start welding on it, and see what you come up with. That's always a good time.
Nice having all those tools and pieces around. Yeah. I love those kind of projects, man.
Yeah. Our farmyard, we got to keep it pretty clean because we got so many corporate freaking boardrooms coming through it. But we do have the back side of the shop that looks a little bit like a hermit that never throws anything away. And actually, I found some more good parts out of there than I could ever get manufactured anywhere else. But I'm thinking, like we had talked, south-facing hill, and I was thinking HVAC to control airflow. And I've been watching, and humidity is a huge thing, so I'm going to have to put humidity in there anyway.
All right.
And so why not just utilize the water to heat?
To heat and do it, yeah.
Hey, kind of what I'm thinking.
Let's come back to that in a second, because I definitely have lots to say about that. But we do have a question from chat from the Hermit. He wants to know what's the best way to restore soil, and I'd love to hear your answer on that, because when people ask me that question, I don't know where to start with them necessarily, except that study and mimic nature. But I would love to hear what your response is to that.
You want to know the best response I've ever heard to that? You know where you start to restore soil? In your mind.
Ha! Well said. Plant the seed and it'll grow, huh?
There's so many different factors. Where are you at? Are you alkaline? Are you acidic? What's your pH?
Yeah.
How much? What's your cation exchange capacity? But if you want a general rule of thumb, go plant oats. You can't if it'll grow oats, then you can move on from there. And if it'll grow oats, then it'll probably grow some of these cover crops, and you go to green cover seed, and you call green cover seed or whomever you're using, and you say, I got a lot, I got an alley, I got a field, and I'm trying to basically bring the soil back to life. Here's what I've got. Pull some soil samples, send them into a lab. They're like $9 a sample, and it's a whole process. You gotta be a soil scientist. You gotta be a plant pathologist. How deep do you want me to go on this? But really, that's the Throw some seeds out there, and if they don't grow,
Thank
you
you,
really got
Justin.
problems.
Thank you, Big Rob. Yeah, no, I totally agree. I just want to say thank you here quick. Justin, thank you for the super chat. And Big Rob, thank you for the super chat too. That is awesome. Thank you so much, guys, for donating. That's fantastic. Yeah, no, that's the same answer I have. You really have to go back and look at the soil and study it. And the easiest way to do that for me, for somebody who isn't familiar with it, I say go take a walk in the forest and take a look at the soil underneath the leaves in the forest. Take a look at all those processes that are happening, and then take that concept of the forest canopy that's over you and scale it down to cover crops and put that in your soil. If you start with cover crops and you can get cover crops to grow, that's a great way to get that soil opened up and to starting to sequester nutrients and sequester carbon. And once you start that process, it gets easier and easier as you go.
Yeah, they're doing it in parts of the Sahara Desert, man.
Yeah.
They're what do they call it? De-desertification or something
Yeah.
like that. And
Yeah.
I tell you, I have learned more from the Australian farmer. If you guys aren't paying attention, you should.
Boy,
The
are they
Australian
on point,
farmer
aren't
is
they?
dealing with some of the most. Yeah, they really are because they have no choice. They're dealing with the climate we're going to be dealing with in 20, 30 years, 50, hell, maybe 10 years. I mean, no rain. They're working with some of the, and they don't have great soils. I mean, they really have an uphill struggle in Australia, and they are doing some remarkable things. You can learn a lot from the Australian farm channels. In fact, I have and would recommend.
Yeah. Yeah. I have another question from chat here. Does Brad use any IMO or indigenous microorganisms or fungi to remediate used up and tainted soil? Before you go into that, though, I just want to say, yeah, I totally agree with you. The Australian farmers are ahead of us on the rotational grazing and regenerative agricultural concepts. They've pretty well got it dialed in down there from what I'm seeing.
They're doing very good work. Mycorrhiza fungi, and then more mycorrhiza fungi. What was the full question? Because there's a whole bunch of other answers like humic acid, folic acid, trichoderms, humates, acetate,
Yes. A full spectrum of biology would be probably the way to do it, right? I mean, I know that's what I'm trying to do here. Like I use several different products.
Yeah. And what I do is I use a lot of foliar, and I use a lot of when I do use fertilizers, I'll use it at very low rates, and it'll be 70% biological, essentially a mixture of pseudomonias and trichoderms and humates. I mean, humates are one of the number one.
Humics and fulvics and sugars
for the microbes.
Yeah.
I mean, and you get an amazing response, and you can put on a third of the liquid nitrogen that you would otherwise, and get just as much bang for it, because we do use some, not all of our ground, especially like ground we pick up and rent that has been mined for 20 years. The first 2 or 3 years I farm it, I got to farm it like an old farmer.
Yeah.
Or like an old mindset farmer.
Yeah.
I can't transition it instantaneously, because I'll just let me go rent a field for $60,000 a year. That's what they cost, just by the way, around here, just for an average sized field. And
how big is that field, out of curiosity?
$18,000. 150 to 155 acres, give or take.
Wow, that's a lot of money.
It's about you're talking $400 or $500 an acre, 400.
Wow.
450. Dude, there's a reason the American farmers going, but $28 billion had to be stuck into the commodity agriculture model, the chemical farming commodity agriculture model, just in the second and third quarter of 2020. $28 billion of USDA money had to be dropped into the commodity ag model.
Wow.
To open a couple people's eyes. It has never gone above $3 billion
Wow.
before 3 years ago.
Awesome.
I mean, the USDA's budget is like $200 million, but they put the school lunch programs and the food stamp program, which is fine. I'm not arguing right or wrong there.
Yeah.
Just saying, people say the USDA's budget's $200 million. Well, guess what? Like $189 million of that goes to school lunches, which is totally fine. The farmers don't take 200, billion a year. It's, the payments, and then they force us to buy insurance through the federal government.
Yep.
So it's insanely expensive. So expensive we can't afford it. So they subsidize it by half, and that's how they take control of your farm.
Yep.
And then at that point, they know exactly everything that they're. I mean, they do it through taxation. I mean, it's just one of the other things farming's facing, and the massive turnover of land. What's going to happen when this generation of boomers starts to pass in the next 15 or 20 years? I hate to speak in these crass of terms, but a lot of land is going to be bought by holding corporations.
Yep. It's already happening here in New York.
You're probably seeing it. You're probably seeing the first wave of what I'm going to see in a few years.
Yep. I got another question from the chat here. What is the biggest barrier you are facing with Monsanto on producing non-GMO heirloom seeds for distribution?
What is the biggest what again?
Biggest barrier you are facing.
Barrier.
Yeah.
Okay. Now the biggest barrier is that they have endless pocketbooks, or at least they pretend that they do, and they will. Anytime, every single new product every single new seed line I've developed, I've had to fight with about $1 million of legal fees just to get it. Timing on that misconnection.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe we should just tie that conversation up with a bow and leave it right there.
Yeah, I think we will.
And
enough said. Uh-oh, touch the nerve.
Just throw that out there. The overlords watching YouTube decided, hey, F this guy tonight.
Just saying. Awfully interesting coincidence.
Yeah, that's a great question though. No, that is an absolutely great question, and that's you should be able to just create a product and sell it. But no, you also have to fight these horrific, upside down, dirty as hell battles, which is there's days I want to just walk away from it, and then there's other days where it's like, oh hell no. Not only am I not walking away from it, in 20 years I'm going away from it. In 20 years I'm going to kick your ass.
Yeah, I'm coming for you. I'm going to remember this, and now you're on my list.
And lately, in the last 5 years especially, I've been having more of those days than the other days. Now, like 7 years ago, it was like a 6 to 7 ratio of the other kind of days. So
Yeah.
Had to learn to what's like Sun Tzu, fight them where they're not. Right?
Yes. Make them think you were far when you were near, and near when you were far. Yeah.
Well, I'm just we've got a pretty big operation, a pretty good one going, and a number of partner growers. But at the end of the day, I am just kind of an outlaw cowboy out here, plowboy, just out here doing my thing with my seed company. And they just can't whack the mole. I mean, they keep trying. I'm definitely on their radar. They really. I've got some buddies that work there. They always call me and give me a hard time, and I always give them a hard time back. I'm like, so how's your consulting gig? Do you have your orange smock on? And they're like, oh, have you, lobber? What do you? It must be nice just to drive around, do whatever you want all day. So there's some.
It is. Join us.
It's some good-natured jabbing.
It's great. Come join us. What are you doing? Still sitting in the lab?
Yeah, right. Right, except I know the guys, and I wouldn't hire them if they were the last people to hire on Earth. That's why Monsanto hired them.
Right. Got to have cattle, not independent thinkers.
Yeah, and I tell you what, that's hard to find. I mean, I can find there's so many people that want to just push a broom for $10 an hour, but
I
I mean, I
can't
always
even
tell people
fathom
when they
that.
ask me, so well, what do you pay? And I always say, well, how much value do you bring to my company? I mean, if you bring me $1.5 million value, we calculate the overhead out, and I don't know, what, you want 10%? And they look at me and go, really? Like, well, you know what? If you screw up and you lose $500,000 of my money, then you owe me 50 grand. So, welcome to business.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to
that's
you're gonna
how
have
it
to be
goes.
accountable, and you're gonna have to produce something at the end of the day, right? I'm not hiring you to sit on your butt.
Right, exactly. And so I've got a company of people that are operating with that as their, basis for their, success or failure of their day. And every day that, we're working in, 19 different areas now in 22 different locations. It's getting to the point where we needed to partner with somebody like Benson Hill, somebody that had the capital to really put it all together. And we're seeing massive infrastructure expansion in the next couple of years. I mean, right now we've got, I can say this, we've got 35,000 acres of these nutrient-dense soybeans growing in the United States in 2020.
Wow.
The seed that I grew in 2019. And next year is the I guess you'd say the bigger mega launch. We're going for 1/4 to 500,000 bushels, and I'm growing a couple thousand acres of the seed. Actually, just got done harvesting it, just beginning to condition it, and we've already got orders, and people already want to get it on their floor. They want to get it bought and on their floor because they're worried somebody else is going to try to pay me more money and buy it out from under them, so that they can grow the seed that we're. I mean, that's the kind of demand that we're working with. So it's part of it is a vision, and part of it is surrounding yourself with people that don't necessarily yes men share the vision. I mean, you need good people to check you along the way,
sure,
constantly. And
so, always.
No, I think you need to have. I don't know what's that old saying. The entrepreneurs are a little bit kind of left-brained. I mean, they're almost a little bit artistic, if you will, and they don't do so well with the nuts and bolts, the process, the menial work, if you will, the boring stuff.
Yep.
I have a hard time with that, so I got to surround myself with a lot of really schedule-oriented people, and I just piss them off so much because I keep no schedule. They're all like, "Man, you said you'd be here for this meeting at 10." I'm like, "Well, I'm not up yet. Okay, push it to me."
It took me till 6 a.m. to get my crop planted last night. I'm sorry, I had to get my rest. Yeah, I'm the same way. Like I'm the same thing. That structure thing just doesn't work for me.
Right?
Right. Well, so then they can wait till I'm here to talk to them. I mean, what do you want to know? I'm here. Where's that coffee at?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Exactly right. You got any other good questions popping up?
I did have a question from Marie Bond. She was asking about water. But the question scrolled up quite a bit. If you have heavy chemical content in municipal water, and plus your soil is already contaminated with pesticides from past usage, how do I change it to grow my fruits? That's a good question. That's not an easy answer, though.
That's a very good question. The good part of the answer is that it can be done.
Yeah.
Through basically, you're looking at. I would honestly, that organic standard you mentioned earlier, 3 years. Yeah, I agree with you that 3 years it's just
it's just a number. It's just a number.
A shot in the dark. But if you take 2 growing seasons, whatever that is, in your area, and you grow it the way that you want to grow it, and you grow it naturally, and that doesn't mean taking all commercial fertilizers away. Maybe you need to put something down on that for a year or two. I mean, there's zinc is, I consider that a commercial fertilizer, just as an example. I mean, it can do a great amount of help when needed. and kickstart some things.
Yep.
So really, if you look at it that way, now when it comes to groundwater contamination, that's a subject that hits close to home because we sit
I'll
over the
bet.
top of the Ogallala Aquifer in
Yep.
southeast Nebraska.
And that is heavily contaminated, isn't it?
It's actually in our area. Our parts per billion are pretty good for nitrates. We're like 3 parts per billion, and the acceptable
that's
is
not
like
bad.
200 million.
Yeah.
Now there's some counties around the bigger cities that have 20 and 30 parts per million, which is, they say, still within, but that's a lot of nitrate. And I mean, that's again irresponsible farming practices. And so that's something that I always say, guys, these aquifers, we have to be good stewards of them. And there's a lot of strong evidence that aquifers that get pumped properly regenerate themselves.
Yeah.
The whole cycle.
That whole water
of the
cycle thing
earth
is interesting all by itself. Yeah.
Yes. Right, the rain and actually the water stratifies itself and cleans itself
Yep.
through the layers of the earth as it goes down to the aquifer. And so, there's years we've gotten 3 feet of rain and the aquifer rose, 2.5 feet. There's years we got 10 inches of rain and we suck the aquifer down a foot lower. If you get 3 or 4 years in a row where you start sucking that aquifer too low, you better start backing off. And we have a series of local NRDs that my great-grandfather and grandfather actually set up in our area that we shut farmers off at certain points. So we haven't had to do it for 5 years because we've gotten decent rainfalls. But there was a time in 08, 9, 10, 12, God, the drought of 12 was epic. And we, at some point, said, hey, in Texas, they suck the Ogallala Aquifer dry. I mean, you get halfway through Kansas and drive south, it turns into desert. And I refuse to let my backyard turn into
that. Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry, your yields might fall off a little bit for a couple of years, but if we just pump this thing empty, and guys, we got to be good stewards of them. I mean, there's holes punched in this aquifer all over the place, and we've got backflow valves, and we're actually pretty anal about checking our neighbors and our fellow farmers about that, because I don't want our fellow farmers to be the reason, and I mean, that comes with runoff. And having good boundaries, having grass waterways. We're actually in southeast Nebraska, in my area, especially with all the specialized production, we're pretty, I would say, probably more in tuned into that than most areas. There's a couple neighbors that are always a pain in the butt, and don't want to get their stuff together, but we'll just go out and do the work for them, if they don't do it, because I mean that's something that's near and dear to me. That Ogallala Aquifer, my brother's got this. He's made up a bunch of shirts and stuff, and some guys wear them. There's about 20 or 30 of us kind of run around out here. We call ourselves the Sons of Ogallala. It's like we're here to defend this aquifer. I mean, this aquifer we will defend. This aquifer will pump out crisp, cool, clean drinking water for my children's generation. And we're trying to set up a series of dispute resolutions. Because what do you do with the common?
Brad,
the aquifer is the common.
I don't want to interrupt you, but we've got about 1 minute left here, and I just want you to have an opportunity to plug your channel or make your point. I hope that we'll get you back on here again. Obviously, this conversation could go on probably ad infinitum, so I hope you'll come back as a recurring guest.
Oh yeah, forever and ever and a day. But no, hey, I appreciate you guys having me on. Appreciate y'all listening. Grow the farm up. That's the channel. I don't ever really plug it or ask people to subscribe or, I'm not a view counter, click counter, but go there and check it out because there's a lot of good info there. Dig deep, go deep into a few of the videos and you'll find some really interesting stuff there. I've laid down probably, we just touched the surface. I really go deeper into a lot of these topics on the videos of my channel. And once again, appreciate you having me on Pharmacy Seeds Network. I give it back to you to close the show out.
thanks for coming on, Brad. We're just about here at the break, so that just wraps it up. But thanks for coming on.
Censorship and regulation is becoming an ever-growing problem
yeah, I
in
think
today's modern media.
Perfect.
we're
We'll
clipped
be
out
in
on
touch, my
TFR.
man.
But yeah, hey man,
The
awesome.
information
And
we
we should
look
exchange
for is
emails at
carried
some
by
point.
official
We'll catch
narratives
up.
and propaganda.
Thanks again, Brad.
This
I
is
look
why
forward to talking to you
TFR
soon.
is 100% uncensored, unregulated, and listener
Same to you.
supported. The shows on TFR are not micromanaged by the station.